Welcome to Solo, the single person's guide to a remarkable life. Your host, a behavioral scientist and bachelor, talks to leading experts and successful singles about living solo and living well. Travel more, make things, sleep in when you want to. Here's the playbook for the person who is unapologetically unattached. Now, please welcome Dr. Peter McGraw.
In this episode, I talked to EC Synkowski, an expert in nutrition and the creator of the 800-gram challenge. I'm joined by a hilarious guest host who asks the questions that I'm not willing to ask. EC does a primer on quantity versus quality in eating and how the idea relates to a variety of trendy diets. We talk about the value of gut biomes and how nutrition, sleep, and exercise won't cure everything, though they cure a lot of things. Sometimes you just need to go to a doctor. Finally, EC talks about her challenges pursuing a remarkable life. In this week's bonus episode, we quiz EC about whether certain foods are okay to eat or not. Hope you enjoyed. Let's get started. Welcome to Solo, the single person's guide to a remarkable life. I'm Peter McGraw. Today's guest is EC Synkowski. EC runs Optimize Me Nutrition, which offers B2B and B2C educational products, mobile app-based challenges, and corporate wellness programs. Her program helps people improve their weight, health, and overall well-being through sustainable diet methods. She's created the 800-gram challenge, a diet free of restrictive rules to lose weight, reduce blood pressure, and improve performance and recovery. EC has a BS in biochemical engineering, an MS in environmental sciences with this focus in genetics, and another MS in nutrition and functional medicine. She's worked previously as program manager for CrossFit Inc. We're joined by a special co-host, Gia Cognata. Gia is a makeup artist, stylist, photographer, and writer from Los Angeles. Her most recent work was helping autistic children focus on independence training. I found her on Instagram through friends and invited her to appear on my other podcast, I'm Not Joking. That's the name of the podcast. I suspect that Gia will be a perfect co-host for today's episode. First, she's way funnier than I am. Second, she's committed to health and fitness. And third, she's recently found herself in the hospital with anemia. Welcome, EC. Welcome, Gia.
I'm here and I'm ready and I have extra energy because I have extra blood.
That's Gia,
That's right.
Obviously.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, it's great to have you here. So, EC, I heard about you from 3 different places, from 3 different people. And that's why we're rushing this podcast before I leave town. So I have a friend who's a journalist, and she got invited on a CrossFit cruise, and she went to your talk.
Oh, cool.
And she was really impressed, and she basically said you were the best part of that cruise.
Oh, wow. Wow. Thank you.
Also, the cruise also had really bad weather, too. So
Yes, we weren't able to port in one location. So on a 3-day cruise, that's but they had a lot of fun activities otherwise.
That's good. So the other one is I've seen you, because I watch the YouTube videos sometimes, although I could have listened to you on Ben Bergeron's Chasing Excellence podcast.
Correct. Yep.
And I was like, I see why my friend thought you were so great. And then third, we have a mutual friend, Charlie Merrill.
Correct.
Charlie and I have talked about you, and he's a previous guest on Solo.
Oh, cool.
And we started talking. So in the bonus taping, we talked about working out to look good naked.
Ah, yes.
And we started talking about nutrition. And to Charlie's credit, he admitted that he didn't know enough to answer many of my questions. And he said, but you know who could? EC.
He knows more than he's saying.
Wow. So so here you are.
Yes.
No pressure now.
Okay.
After that build up. So
Totally.
I want to talk about eating. I want to talk
Yeah.
about nutrition. And I want to talk about eating for a remarkable life.
Yeah, we can do that.
Eating
Good.
to be naked.
So, actually I wrote to feel good, to have energy, to look good.
Yep.
Naked.
Naked.
Yeah.
Or in clothing.
I mean, sure. Some people don't care about fashion.
It's
But
true.
they still have sex.
So Gia and I I warned Gia. Gia's in Boulder for the first time.
Oh, cool.
She's, as I said, LA based. And I said, listen, Boulder has won.
I love all of your fashion. Don't listen to what he's about to say. And I didn't judge anyone in Birkenstocks. And I think it's beautiful to express yourself in a natural way and have a natural look. And
so it's worst dressed cities, but best dressed naked.
Okay.
It's like the thing that Boulder has won.
Okay. Done by Gia.
You told me that.
There was like there was actual listicle or something.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They
Okay.
won, like,
Worst dressed towns, but best.
It is a pretty fit town, and they don't look like LA.
Right.
Right.
They don't dress. But I saw the people and I wanted them to take their clothes off. Not to see them naked, but just the clothes in general. I was like, you could lose that.
You had some line about some closet throwing up on someone.
Oh, well, yeah, I might have said that. It looked like some of the worst clothes. They're the clothes that you would throw away that threw up on somebody. But that person should be confident and love their life. And they're probably single, so they should listen to this podcast and then find a way to get healthy and then get naked.
Yes.
And then they won't be single.
I think this is, I think one of the things is if this podcast is if this project's successful, and people start living a remarkable life. If you don't want to be single anymore, it becomes a lot easier than when you're living an unremarkable life. And so although it's designed to celebrate solo living, there's an irony in the fact that the better you get at solo living,
somebody wants to steal your life.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then they're like, marry me. And then you're like, ew, no. I want to be single forever.
Hey, I'm not making judgments either.
I'm not pushing that on you, Peter. Calm down.
I like to say for now or forever. So if you want to be living the solo life for now or forever.
I like it.
So I want to start with this general idea of what Charlie had said, which is it's hard to give broad advice about nutrition because people are different. They have different needs. I mean, that said, we're going to try to give some broad advice because there are probably some basics that are universal.
Yes.
Why don't we start with that?
Yeah.
Right. So you've created a program that is designed around sort of broad advice.
Yeah. But I would even start more broad than the 800-gram challenge. And it's definitely something I hammer all the time. But nutrition, the goals for most people come down to the same. It always is. They want to look good in a swimsuit or naked or however you want to say it. And they want to be healthy and active into their old age. It's universal. I mean, yes, there's some different ones, but those come around time and time again. And that really comes down to the quantity of food you eat and the quality of food you eat. So how much food you're eating will dictate how you look in that bathing suit. And then what types of food you're eating will depend on how healthy you are. And that is how these various diets out there, they recycle those concepts over and over again. They put their little spin on it, eat these foods instead of these, but quality and quantity come back around over and over again.
Okay.
Well, because like the bottom line, is it caloric restriction? Because I feel like keto and Atkins and like all the same sort of carb, really what's happening is there's a calorie restriction that's being caused there.
Exactly.
Sure, like the sugar, but people get caught up in the minutia of like not eating carbohydrates, which I did.
Right.
But a doctor recommended me to do it. I had like a hormonal imbalance. They said possibly like insulin spikes were causing some like hormonal. So I did that, but it does turn into a fad.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, you have a few questions in there, but generally what happens is I like to describe diets on a spectrum of not precise to very precise. And you just find that the different diets are along that spectrum. And so what happens is something like a keto or a low carb diet, they are restricting one area. And so you can get success there, but because you're not restricting all areas of calories, you also have variable success there. And that's why people will go on keto. Some will have a remarkable success and then others won't because we're not looking at all factors in the diet.
Right.
I want to stop because I think the average person doesn't know all they've heard these terms, but they don't know what they are. Can we do like a little sort of brief primer?
Yeah.
So
on quantity and quality?
Yeah, or no, about some of these diets, just to get a little bit of an idea.
Sure.
And let's talk about them from a quantity quality standpoint.
Yeah.
So Gia mentioned Atkins. What is Atkins and how does that fall along these two dimensions?
You know, and I actually don't know all of Atkins specific, but it is a low carbohydrate diet.
Okay.
And so they're restricting your number of carbohydrate grams per day.
Okay.
What typically happens, because most people are overeating carbohydrates in a standard American diet, and it also tends to come along with fat grams as well. French fries, cake, you name it. So typically what happens by restricting carbohydrates, your overall quantity comes down.
Even if you're just eating bacon and chicken and stuff and eggs all day.
Correct. Because protein, which they're now eating, tends to be more filling, more satiating. And then they're just getting less calories because a lot of the foods that they were eating, they can no longer eat.
Sandwiches.
Chips, cereals, bars, French fries. I mean, the list goes on. Ice cream, even, a lot of that won't fall under their low carbohydrate total.
And how does that do on the quality dimension?
It can be great, and it can also be not so great. And that's where we have a lot of variable in results. So, for example, you
could eat all bacon all day.
Correct. And then we have a problem.
Satisfy Atkins.
Correct.
And so your quality's bad.
Correct. And again, I don't want to speak specifically to Atkins because I don't know all of his rules, but on a low carbohydrate diet, you could eat all bacon, and I would not think that that's health protective, but yet you're satisfying the requirements of the diet.
Got it.
And you can also gain weight that way. And that's where people are like, well, I'm doing low carb, but I don't understand why I'm gaining weight because we now have too many excess fat calories.
Indeed. Okay. Zone.
Yep. That's a diet that is a balanced macronutrient diet, meaning there's a relatively equal split between protein, carbohydrate, and fat, which are our 3 macronutrients. And so
the CrossFitters used to love Zone, no?
Well, the founder of CrossFit, Greg Glassman, worked with Dr. Sears in some of the early days implementing it. And so there was dramatic success with it. And it also does fit well with the training methodology for sure, high-intensity protocols. Strength-based high-intensity protocols. We can get into that as well. But yeah, it's a mixed macro diet. And one of the reasons that I actually think it's great for people outside of a CrossFit environment is sustainability. When you take something like a very low carbohydrate diet and you say, well, you can no longer have bananas or pick something or even ice cream, right then you're going to start losing out on the long-term game, which is where we see results, right? So that's why I like the Zone. Now, I don't think that everybody needs to weigh and measure all of their food, but this sort of balanced macronutrient approach means we can fit more foods in the diet, which means people are going to stick with it.
I see. And then you mentioned keto.
We could lump that near Atkins. It's a more severe restriction of carbohydrates. Yeah.
You can tell I've never done any of these things. But then if you look at me, you're like,
I was going to say, how do you eat?
He's like, I just eat food. I'm a man.
I'll tell you afterwards what I've done. Yeah.
With the keto though, they want you to up your fat, right?
Correct. Well, it's actually keto that you have to restrict your carbohydrates so that you actually have ketones in your blood. Right. And to do that, then you need to be eating something else. And so they basically will say you can have, it depends what you're listening to, but basically unlimited fat.
Right.
It's not truly unlimited. It's just that you don't sit down and ever eat coconut oil by itself or olive oil by itself. So when your carbohydrates are so low, it effectively limits your fat as well because you're not just going to sit down to a tub of fat.
Okay. Can I interrupt?
Yeah, I know.
I know we're a little bit in the weeds, and I just want to have people hold on because we're going to get. I just think it's important because these things get thrown around, and I like this quality quantity heuristic. I think it makes good sense, and people can get their head around it. And so this is sort of usthis way to kind of look at how these, I don't know, call them programs, fads, whatever. But this keto idea is that this is supposed to be a diet that changes the way your body burns energy, creates energy, burns calories. Like, again, I'm 6'5", 200 pounds. Like, I'm not needing this stuff.
Right.
So I'm,
Keto has become a fad, I think, for weight loss, and you certainly can lose weight on it, but you can lose weight on a lot of things.
Yeah.
So that's where some of, I think, the media overhype has gotten there. What they're trying to do is limit carbohydrates. Where do I think there's a true application for it? Sure, weight loss, but like I said, we can do it a lot of different ways. Or people that are insulin resistant. So there's also a hormonal response to this diet by limiting the amount of overdoing it in terms of high carbohydrate foods. We can turn off that insulin response a little bit. And so the keto diet has been effectively used to reverse type 2 diabetes. So great for that specific application. Is it necessary for all mainstream?
Yeah. I think I got the sense it's like a lot of dudes who want to have six packs.
Interesting.
Do the keto thing.
No,
Am I wrong?
think it's like chubby women.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Same focus.
You're like, I can't eat this.
They think the same way.
I did it. Because of a doctor, it's not sustainable because it's not practical to eat that way.
Yeah, you have to be truly committed.
Yeah. weird, like obsessive, and then you get stuck in this sort of obsessive, like.
I'm going to ask one more.
I just want to add on to the keto thing though, because I think there's a very valid application for it, but I actually don't think it's ideal for a lot of people, not just from the sustainability, but also from limiting nutrients that you do get from fruits and vegetables, including fiber. And so there can be shifts, and we're going to get a little bit in the weeds here, of the gut microbiota, which now we know gut health, which is a big whatever, all of this stuff. And so again, when we go to these really restrictive places, we can't just think about fat loss. We have to also think about what are the nutrient implications
Constipation.
of that.
These people aren't pooping because they're not eating the veggies in the... They're like, oh, I can't have that because it's got a carb in it. And I'm like, well, do you ever want to take a shit again? Or it's just...
And that too.
Thank you for stating the underlying.
Hi, I'm here. I'm here to help.
You are
best co-host.
I knew that we were going to get this. I'm so happy. So last one.
Yeah.
Paleo.
Sure.
That what the hell?
Paleo focuses on the quality of food that you eat, so pretty much unprocessed stuff. And then they say you can eat as much as you want of that. Now, why quality diets often kill two birds with one stone, often get that quantity goal as well, is because of caloric density. So when you're eating these fruits and vegetables, you can eat more by volume. So you feel full, your stomach is literally filled up, but you're having less calories. And so it's a way that when you start including more quality items in your diet, you tend to reduce your quantity as well. And then you also get some nice nutrients.
Right.
I see.
But you can do the paleo diet and also gain weight, and that's called almond butter and bacon. And there we go.
You know, is it? Do you think it's fair to say that if you're really enjoying your eating,
you're doing it wrong? It should be a painful process.
You're really enjoying yourself a lot. You're probably eating some things that in the.
I wouldn't want to say that.
Okay, good.
I think I think that's a little. Yeah, it's gonna always context. We got to look at the context.
Yeah. So I think some of the things that like Charlie's point about it's hard to give broad advice because people are different, they have different needs, just showed up in this idea of, right? So as you were saying, like keto could be very good for a particular person.
Yeah.
If you have particular, let's say, fitness goals,
sure.
Right? You're performing at a high level.
Sure.
So it's this will get released much later, but the Ironman is happening here in Boulder on Sunday. So these folks have very specific needs.
Yeah. Ish.
No? Ish.
Like,
okay, good.
And where I wanted to go with the quality and quantity thing is to get after our goals of the body composition and health, we need to eat what our body needs, not more. And we also need to eat high quality foods. And so like, yes, there's these offshoots of athletes or type 2 diabetics, but there's a large swath of the population that just needs to be eating more whole foods than not and eating less. And I think that message has kind of gotten lost a little bit. And there's so much power there that we're not talking about like some people can have a diet of cigarettes and Pop-Tarts. Like it's within the genre of whole foods and not eating too much. We all fit. And then there are some people that can skew their carb ratio a little bit higher, or some people with their protein, but it's kind of collectively coming around these two tenets.
So the Glassman saying is eat meat. I'll start over. Eat meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, and no sugar.
Yep.
Keep intake to levels that will support exercise, but not body fat.
Yep.
And that feels you don't work there anymore.
I don't work there anymore, but that's incredibly powerful two phrases in terms of nutrition.
I think that's I find that to be I'm trying to do those things.
Yeah.
And yes, eating's a little less fun when you do that, but there's still plenty of variety and there's plenty of enjoyable eating, and you don't feel like you're hungry all the time.
Right.
You know what I mean? That kind of a thing.
If I could mention the 800-gram challenge, because that is sort of flipping the script a little bit on diet. When we think about these diets, we've already mentioned with keto, it's all about this restriction and I can't have this and it's not sustainable. So the 800-gram challenge is a challenge I created to eat 800 grams by weight of fruits and vegetables each day. It doesn't matter if they're cooked, canned, frozen, or fresh. When you weigh them
cooked, canned, frozen, or fresh.
However you want to weigh them on a scale. It ends up being about 6 cups. So you can also think about it that way instead of what is 800 grams? Right. But also the choices are up to you. Like if you really want to do strawberries, great. If you want to do green beans, great. I don't care which fruits and vegetables you're choosing. Pick your shooter's choice. Have that type of volume during the day.
Is there a ratio of like vegetables to fruit that you're supposed to kind of keep, or can you?
And I say no to that answer.
Okay.
I'll tell you what it is.
I bet you will.
We can get into that, but optimal nutrition is actually inclusive of a variety of fruits and vegetables because of the different vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals that you're getting and fiber types even. So I would never want to say, there's this notion out there that like fruit's bad for you. And it's like, oh my God, I can't even deal with that.
Right.
There's some really beneficial things from fruit. And typically what we find in a mixed variety of fruits and vegetables in 800 grams, it's about 500-600 calories. And why I bring that up is we know that's way less than what people need in a day.
Right.
So like whatever you want to pick to hit your 800 gram number, it's going to be okay in terms of your calories. Now, the other thing about this diet and why I brought it up though at that point was there are no restrictions. So it's once you hit your 800 grams of fruits and vegetables that day, I don't care if you have ice cream, I don't care how much protein you add to it, I don't care if you have bacon, your glass of wine, etc.
Right.
It's sort of a paleo twist in the sense of by focusing on that amount of quality in your diet, you end up pushing out the ice cream choices and the wine and the chocolate, but you're not so obsessive and restrictive that you never have them.
I see. So this came up in the Bergeron podcast, which so I'm a scientist.
Yep.
And I really liked this observation that you made. I think, please forgive me if I'm mischaracterizing it. So we can start talking about studies of nutrition. Mm-hmm. And one of the very challenging things, so in a world of science, what you want to do is these very carefully controlled experiments where you only change one thing. And so in psychology, you can do that, right? I can show you. So one group, this picture, and the other group, that picture, mm-hmm. and everything else remains the same. And then we know the difference in their response is due to the picture and not due to anything else. Mm-hmm. I've never thought about, I don't do nutrition studies, but the idea of when you make one change, mm-hmm. you often make multiple changes, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
And so that makes the science behind, actually the data. So the theory, I think, is pretty good nowadays, mm-hmm. but the data is difficult to interpret because if you take something out of a diet, you're taking the nutrition out and you might be taking the calories out.
There, you've got it. Right? And then is it the nutritional component or is it just the overall caloric load?
Or vice versa. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's right.
Yep. And what are you subbing it with? And yeah, it's very difficult. And that's why it's very difficult to take one study and go like, we have the answer, which I don't think happens in other fields either. But I think in nutrition, it's very easy to get this one study that looked at a low carbohydrate diet and be like, this is it for everybody. And it's like, well, hold on.
Yeah. What did you replace those carbohydrates with?
What was controlled?
How much of them?
Right.
Yes.
Did calories come down in addition to that low carbohydrate? Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's interesting because optimize. Oh, excuse me, your 800
gram challenge.
I almost said 800 kilogram challenge.
All right.
Your 800 gram challenge recognizes that element, which is just if you put enough fruits and vegetables into your body, you crowd out other potentially bad things.
Yep. Yeah. There's a displacement effect.
Yes. So I want Gia and I to talk about how we're eating these days.
Great.
And I want you to...
I have implemented, I stopped eating strictly sort of, I guess, low carb after a period of time. Mm-hmm. I did lose weight from it, but it was something I didn't feel it was like a long-term thing that I could sustain.
Sure.
I do calorie restrict.
Okay.
I do also intermittent fast.
Okay.
It's just something that I don't know if that's who knows?
Yeah.
Everybody's different.
And for people who haven't heard about, I know intermittent fasting has become a thing.
Yep.
Normal people know what it is now, but what exactly is intermittent fasting?
It's just restricting your time at which you eat to a certain time during the day. Okay. A lot of people, the most common is the overnight fast. So let's say that you stop eating dinner by 7 p.m., that you don't start eating for another 15 or 16 hours, including sleep. So you might not start eating till 10 or 11 a.m. the next day.
That's more or less what you're doing, yes?
Right. And I think that it's more
breakfast.
about...
Gia has not eaten breakfast.
It keeps you in within a calorie sort. It's really more about it restricts your calories a little bit.
Effectively, that's what the idea is. I mean, if you just skip a meal, guess what happens to your overall quantity? It's gonna come down. But here's what happens is you can also condense how much you're eating into just a shorter window. So let's say the next day that I'm only eating between 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. And so I miss my breakfast and I have my normal lunch. And then at dinner, I'm like, well, I missed my breakfast. So I'm going to have another glass of wine. I'm going to have dessert. And now we've just made up all of our calories that we missed at breakfast, right? So you can also overeat within the period that you're eating eating. And that's why, again, it's another diet because it's not controlling everything. We see variable results. Some people are going to lose weight.
Right.
And other people are just eating the same amount in a less period of time.
Well, I certainly do think it is about like getting nutrition. I think like as a society, we look at food in a very interesting way because it's decadent. We're willing to give up all the nutrients as long as we can eat a whole thing of ice cream. Like, and we're not treating food like medicine or like something that can make you feel better, which it can. If
totally.
You're eating the right things.
Nourishment is the word I like.
Totally.
It'll change your life. You'll be like, why do I feel so good? You're eating nutrition.
I know, I have, but there is some theory behind intermittent fasting that even holding calories equal, there's some repair element that's supposed to be the
repair
case.
And the more insulin sensitivity. And
He's like scratching her shoulder. Oh yeah, the repair.
I would love to see it that let's take somebody who does intermittent fasting at the appropriate caloric load and compare it to people that are not doing fasting at the appropriate caloric load. And is there any difference? And I'm going to say no.
Probably not, yeah.
So you think most of the benefit of intermittent fasting is you
restrict quantity.
You just eat less.
Right.
You eat less.
Okay.
People, I mean, and what do we do? And a lot of the people doing these studies probably have some weight to lose, probably haven't been eating at the appropriate caloric load. And so guess what? It's going to be a benefit because now we're cutting down on quantity. Like that's just a no-brainer. Do I think it's that magical for like resetting your circadian rhythm and insulin sensitivity? No. Let the record and science prove me wrong, but I'd rather people focus on, am I eating the appropriate quantity for supporting my life activities and health versus I have to do it at specific times during the day.
I see. I keep we'll get back to Gia's habits in a second. I keep a 12-hour fast.
Okay.
And I kind of have like in general,
sure.
Like when I was in college and performing at a pretty high level athletically, I had a rule, don't eat after 9 o'clock.
Okay.
And so when you don't eat after 9 o'clock and you're a college kid, you basically are keeping a 12-hour fast. Now as an adult, I just try not to eat for 12 hours after I've eaten dinner, whenever that is, more or less. So, but I don't feel like, first of all, the people who are serious about their intermittent fast, like, geez,
don't look at me like that.
Looking at me
where's the camera
like,
to show you how you're looking at me then?
I love your point though about the 9 p.m. Think about our lifestyle, college, even adult.
Yes.
What happens in terms of our diet typically after 9 p.m.?
It's bad.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, that's when we get naked. We're single, we're naked, and we're touching each other.
Okay, well.
No, I'm sorry.
She said
we have
diet.
different. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, she did say lifestyle.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
But,
Gia has this at swingers clubs.
I love
I think you guys are hip and cool and very sexual people, and I'm glad to be in a room
it.
with both of you. They're very fit. You can't see how fit they are.
Oh, man.
But
like, if we were to take a clock and like look at where the majority of I don't even like the word bad, less ideal calories occur, there's probably a good amount that happens in the middle of the night, late, out drinking, socializing, all of that stuff. And so these rules that are like, don't eat after 9 p.m., the physiology doesn't really shake out in the sense of, does it really matter? But what does shake out is you end up eating less.
Yeah, people don't
Most
go and
people
eat a real healthy salad at 11:30.
Typically, no.
Taco Bell created the fourth meal.
Correct.
Right?
you're being naughty the later it gets.
Typically, yeah.
So I'm trying to stay away from unprocessed food. So if it comes in a box.
So you're trying to stay from processed food.
Oh,
there you go.
Yeah. I was like,
I'm trying to
why would he do that?
I'm sorry. I'm trying to eat unprocessed
we have to
food.
talk about a lot of things.
Yeah.
We have to start over.
Shut this off. I think we need to have a conference.
I am not. I have to admit, I'm not. I bragged that I was like, oh, I'm good at to these two before we started. Like, oh, I'm good at this.
Okay.
And I'm clearly not good at it today. So I'm trying to eat unprocessed food, stay away from processed food.
Great.
So, bread. I consider bread, to fit that like that as a.
As processed or unprocessed?
I think I treat bread as processed.
Okay.
So I'm eating many fewer like sandwich. I used to fuel my entire life with sandwiches.
Okay.
Every meal was a sandwich. I needed lots of calories.
Sure.
And now as an older man, I don't need as many calories. And I have doubled down on salads and protein. So
Great.
Most of my meals these days, day to day, when I'm not on the road, is a salad with a protein, lightly dressed.
Awesome.
And fairly big.
That's how I like my women as well. Lightly dressed and just with
with a
lot
little bit of protein.
Right. Exactly.
And so I have to say this. I never get fat, but I'm probably about 10 pounds heavier this time last year.
Sure.
And then last summer I got serious about, look, both quantity and quality.
Sure.
I up the quality and I down the quantity.
Sure.
And I'll be damned, like it works.
Yep.
It took a long time.
Of course.
But I look completely different.
Yep.
As a result of it. And I feel, and I'm performing at a higher level. Like
Dr. Peter, you've never been fat, ever.
The fattest I've ever got was I purposely tried to get, I purposely decided to put like 10 pounds, and I just let myself eat whatever I wanted to, kind of a thing.
How'd that work out for you?
I did it, but it took a little bit of work,
I feel like everyone should be fat for just a minute.
Just to know what it's
Yeah, because I feel like people that are healthy have a really good relationship with food. And I'm like, well, try it on the other end so you can see what those people are going through. And it's a nightmare. Like they have a really negative relationship with food.
I would say
you
that
could say that though about some people that look very thin as well.
You can have,
that's true. That's true. Very thin. Very thin.
Not just thin, but also, with everything, it's a double-edged sword. There's going to be athletes who have a very negative image of their self-body.
Well, that's the thing about intermittent fasting too. I'm like, does it lend to letting people kind of get involved in this control of not eating and only eating this little amount where we're going, oh, it's okay for you to do that, when in reality it may not be so great.
I think that's true with any diet though. And that's where any of these diet rules, finding the ones that make sense to the person and don't turn on these super restrictive, hyper restrictive and negative self-talk are the ones to do. And if that's intermittent fasting, some people find it incredibly freeing. And some people find it incredibly restrictive. And you can say that about every diet.
I have. Yeah. I can't do that. I'm going to fast for this long and that's it. And,
totally.
And just obsess on the scale as well.
Totally.
There was a period of time where I would get on the scale a lot.
Yep.
Too much.
Oh, this is a fun, there's two little anecdotes that come listening to you talk about this. So one is I have a friend who will remain nameless. He jokes that that basically he's got this Appalachian DNA where he just loves eating comfort foods and all this kind.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah, I think that it's part of being human.
Biological response.
Humans like sugar and fat and so on. But it's part of his identity.
Yeah.
He's a fit guy, but he sees himself as a fat person inside.
I see. Yeah, that's so common.
And look, I'll tell you this: he has a little bit of it because he lives a busy life. Whenever I want to make sure I see him, I invite him to a meal.
Right.
I'm like, let's get lunch. He's like, okay.
Yeah.
But if I want to just meet with him in the afternoon,
it won't happen.
Yeah. So he loves the intermittent fasting.
Yep.
And part
is he a binge eater?
Because I think
feel like
likes
binge
it
eaters
a lot
love it because they can eat a lot in one thing.
He gets to
have
really
meals,
have big meals. Mm-hmm. And so for him, I think psychologically, he doesn't feel like he's being restricted because he gets to eat the kind of volume he likes to eat in a normal meal, and he's just doing it
Is he
less often.
me? Oh, it's not me. Okay. I feel like give him my number. I think I do. That is why it's not that I'm not eating a lot. I like the ability to kind of have all of the,
yes.
I spilled my coffee. I'm not just I love talking about nutrition and I'm gasping at it.
I think with nutrition, you always have to remember that's the psychology of it. And, that's actually not my specialty. I really encourage people who have psychological issues with food to go see someone who's trained with that.
Food and body image stuff usually go hand in hand.
Often. I don't want to say always. Sometimes people just don't have the education. They just think that what they're eating because it's available or what they've been told is okay. And so some of it is literally well, let's just coach you to better education and we can get you there. And then just finding a diet that has the right rules in quotes that fit with your lifestyle and beliefs. So there's the physiology of nutrition and then there's the psychology of nutrition. And you want to end up finding one diet approach that kind of fits with both.
For you, yeah. I'll give you an example of one is I'm an early riser. I have a breakfast. And then around 10, 11, because I've eaten so early, I get hungry again.
Yep.
And so what I did for many years is I'd have a Cliff Bar.
Okay.
And then I realized look, not the worst choice.
Sure.
But now what I do is I usually will go, I'm just going to wait the extra hour and have
a
lunch.
bigger lunch or something. Yeah.
Right? That kind of a thing, which I think is probably a good thing to do.
Sure.
Because now I'm not having the Cliff Bar, which is processed, which by the way, Cliff Bars are fine if you're like doing a 50-mile bike ride and you need something to eat that's easy and on the go. So I'm not criticizing it. It's just not a good mid-morning snack. Or if I really need something, I'll have a handful of nuts or I'll have some fruit, try to. So I think that's one of those things, like if you had asked me, but prior to that, is I would say I kind of know nutrition.
Sure.
And I needed a little bit more information to know. That's a little tweak, but I think across time that starts to add up.
And not to be a walking advertisement for it, but that's why like something like the 800-gram challenge, like you have a target to hit of quote good stuff during the day. It's not just sort of like, oh, I need to eat healthy in this general term. It's like I have a number, I have a metric, and that way, like at your 10 a.m. hour when you're hungry, you're like, let me reach for the apple so I get some grams in versus the Cliff Bar or whatever. And so then it kind of sets you up. But in terms of that, like, is the Cliff Bar the good choice or not, and all of that stuff. I was thinking about this because everyone always wants to know, like, can I have X or can I have Y? Like, how to answer those.
And which, by the way, you're doing a little bonus session after this for members of the community.
It's called Mother, May I Eat This?
We are doing EC, Can I Eat This?
Yeah, please.
And where I have a list of things.
I know.
And then she's going to feed it to us.
Can I give some thoughts on the methodology around how I'm going to answer that? Or no, not yet?
No.
Okay, we have to wait.
It's a secret.
No, you can say it. You can do it.
No, I was going to say, like, the Cliff Bar, it's like, I don't want to, there's plenty of ways that you can work a Cliff Bar into a healthy diet, right? But some of the questions about any of these things that we're asking are, is this going to put me over in terms of the total amount of food I need per day? So calories. And does it prevent me from getting the nutrients I need in terms of all of the macronutrients and micronutrients like vitamins and minerals? And so if it's making your caloric load too high and also at a low nutrient cost, we have a problem.
So that's French fries.
It can be. Now, French fries can be worked in. If I already hit my amount of nutrients I needed and I hit my 800 grams and I hit my protein targets and then I have this remaining calories because of my activity level, I'm an athlete or whatever it is,
right? I
can fit French fries into a diet and be healthy. Yeah.
Do you edit what you eat based on your activity per day? Because I kind of do. If I'm not very active that day, if I've just been super sedentary, like I feel like, well, why would I need so many calories if I didn't really move today?
Sure. I generally don't recommend people do that too much because over the course of a week or a month, which is what we really care about in terms of nutrition, your activity is kind of standard. Okay. Like, yes, one day is maybe higher than the next day, but your overall average kind of shakes out. I'd rather you get a consistent baseline across all of the days, so we have kind of a starting point, and then we can make tweaks from there.
So this is to your scale thing, your obsession with the scale.
Right? I mean, I've let it go. I've let it go. I do have a scale in my home.
So on I'm Not Joking, I interviewed Dan Ariely. So Dan Ariely's a behavioral economist. Oh, cool. And then he's also now become. So I asked this question: if you weren't a professor and behavioral economist, what would you be? And he said, I'd be an entrepreneur. He's turned into an entrepreneur. He actually is a co-founder of a company that has a smart scale. Okay. And the big change in, obviously if you go onto Amazon and you type in personal scale, you get, there's a lot. There's 500 choices. Mm-hmm. What's fascinating is they all have something in common that his scale doesn't. Okay. And that is a dial or a readout. Okay. And so the recognition that this company has is that, when we were kids and you stepped on a scale, it had a pointer. And even the pointer couldn't even settle, you know what I mean? Right, it couldn't even settle on a weight. It kind of like vibrated
Shook there sadly.
Exactly.
Help!
And so, but the thing but that actually was a good thing in some ways because it was, am I 140 pounds? Am I 139? Sure. Am I you can't really tell. But now, because of technology, the dials, they're not even dials anymore. They're readouts. Mm-hmm. And it's, you are 139 pounds and 14 ounces or something like that.
And then you go to the doctor and they want you to get on the scale and then they look at you weird when you take all of your clothes off. And I'm like, I want you to get an accurate read. All right. So I'm going to take off.
I need this to the 100th.
Yeah. I did it when I was in the hospital. I was in the hospital 2 days ago. And the bed reads out. And I was like, but my phone's on the bed. And they were like, all right, we'll subtract 0.2. And I was like, okay, thanks.
Wait, so the bed weighs you nowadays in the hospital?
Yes. I mean, if you're in a fancy enough hospital, it weighs you. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
especially for
fascinating.
somebody that can't get up and walk and stuff.
I see. But this is a problem that it's too precise, because
Correct.
some days, like the day before, you were perfect. You did your 800 gram challenge. You worked out, and then you step on the scale, and because whatever reason, our bodies aren't that precise, you've gained a quarter of a pound. And so what they do with their scale is there is no readout. So what you're supposed to do is step on the scale every morning.
Okay.
And what happens is it aggregates, the program aggregates and gives you kind of a rolling total of your weight.
Trend up and down.
Up and down, right? So any one day, and because of something called loss aversion or the negativity bias, when you're below what you think you should be, that feels good. But when you're above what you think you should be, that feels really, 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 really bad.
Correct.
Right.
And so it can be really demotivating.
It's like when a professor scales the test.
or when 44 of your students give you positive feedback and 2
are like, that guy's a
annihilate
blowhard.
you. Yes.
Right.
And you just all you do is think about those 2. And that's
And then you try to figure out who they are, and you punish them. Yes, Peter, I understand. We'll find them.
That's the
We'll find those 2. Don't worry.
That's the negativity bias. So this is a brilliant solution to that, because now you're able to track your weight over time. And what they find is because you're getting a more stable reading, let's say every week or every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Now, at the end of 2 weeks of eating well and exercising, you probably are better off.
Totally.
And then you get this.
Yeah. Yeah. Motivation to continue. Totally.
So, Gia, maybe if for Christmas, you might get one of those scales.
Did you buy stock in this company? Jeez.
You know, I know.
What's the name of the
There's a lot of
scale?
selling going on in this podcast right now.
I know.
What's the name? We're selling sex and a scale that won't tell you how fat
And
you are.
fruits and vegetables.
I mean, I love the concept of eating the fruits and vegetables. I do love that.
Great.
It's
Give it a
something
shot.
that I do. Like when I'm regularly eating,
Right.
I'm going for my nutrition first, because I have been sick recently, and I do want the nutrition. And then I will allow myself to have, like, okay, if I'm still hungry at the end
Totally.
and I have some ice cream or whatever,
Totally.
I'll have it.
Yeah.
Shoot, I just lost my train of thought. I want to talk about your hospital visit.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yes, I in 2018 I had a fibroid removed, and I went through a long process of like bleeding, and it was a nightmare. They wanted to give me a full hysterectomy. I did not want that, because at the time I was like 34, 35, and I was just like, not that I'm trying to I have a vacancy and I want to fill the apartment that's in my body, but I'm just like, I don't want to kickstart menopause and all this other stuff.
Right,
I'm not trying to get pregnant. I just didn't want to go through that.
Sure.
I'm like, is there a way you can do that? And they did. They eventually, but it took such a long time and I was vigilant. And at a certain point it was like, I'm dying, I went to the hospital. I had ambulance come to my house. Like, the normal hemoglobin for like a female is 11 to 14. And so I was at like 5,
Wow.
And then just recently, I was checking up on where my levels were. Last Friday, had a blood test or whatever, and it came back I was at 6 or 5.9 or something crazy. And they were like, I was on my way to go for a hike.
Oh my
I
God.
had been like dizzy, whatever. I operate low, so my body's adjusted.
Yeah. Natural low, right?
Yeah, and I was on my way for a hike, and my doctor called me and was like, absolutely not, unless you want a helicopter to come get you at the top of a mountain, because you're going to pass out. And then immediately told me to go to the hospital, and they gave me 4 units of blood.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was there for 2
she's
days.
been making a joke how she's
Had more
off.
blood. That's right.
She's like, I've got extra blood.
I have extra energy, guys. It's all this blood.
Right.
So I like the 800 gram challenge. You wouldn't be on here if I didn't think that it was good advice. Like, I hear the story about Gia going to the hospital needing 4 transfusions and thinking,
what can we put in her face
how
that
can
makes
we
her
nourish this woman more? And is so I'm not a CrossFitter, but I've been influenced by it. I went on about Charlie has me doing overhead squats. Yes. And it's like really badass thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
What does it look like? Can you show me?
I have a video. I'll show you.
I want you to do one.
We need a bar.
Okay.
And we need to take my pants off.
Hey, man. This is about single people.
This is about, right.
So in any case, so I've been influenced by it, and I like this idea about wellness not being the absence of disease, which is, I like this sort of medical view of health, which is you do not have any diseases, thus you're healthy, versus this idea that I like the idea of well-being, of wellness, and so on. And as a result, I think that like, boy, we can really use exercise and nutrition to fuel, as I said, a remarkable life. Yep. That if you want to work long hours, you need to exercise and eat well.
Even
and
more
sleep,
so,
right? If you want to, be in a good mood and live a pleasurable life, you need to exercise and eat well. Like I always keep coming back to those ideas, but as someone who cares about Gia, I'm like, what can we give this woman to keep her out of the hospital and keep her hiking?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think with this functional movement or functional medicine movement, which is essentially this idea of looking for the root cause of disease and taking care of conditions and disease naturally. And oftentimes nutrition is a big component of that, as well as sleep and exercise and relationships and stress. And I think all of that is good. But with this kind of movement in functional medicine, I think there's also been a backlash of conventional medicine and the conventional medicine practices of looking at disease. And there are some things that we cannot fix and explain with nutrition and sleep. There are some things that we can't just say, eat fruits and vegetables and you will be cured. And I think there's a really almost too much messaging, especially in certain areas, where natural is always better and that all you have to do is eat organic and your problems will be alleviated.
Yeah, I think that's easy for people in Boulder to think like these are people who, let's be honest, have like
big bushes.
They have good.
Oh, I don't know where we're going, but I love it.
I was going to say good genetics.
Okay, cool.
Like they already are healthy people, hence, you know what I mean? They're drawn to this place and so on.
Yep.
And so I do, if you have type 2 or
type 2
diabetes, you need
nutrition,
but also
at the time that you have diabetes, you do actually need treatment.
You need old school medicine.
There is ways to reverse that with lifestyle, and so looking at some of the chronic diseases.
Type 1 diabetes?
No, type 2 diabetes is that's the one that's associated more with obesity, and so that's the one that's massively skyrocketing.
I have a type 1 diabetes friend,
right?
And he was very quick to be like,
"No,
we're not the
I was
same.
born this way.
Yes,
I'm
not a
sure.
It's not a lifestyle.
Yes. Okay, sorry.
So some of our chronic diseases, which actually results in 6 out of 10 or more deaths per year, those things like obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, there very much is a lifestyle component to that.
I see.
And so we do want to do what we can in terms of eating high quality, not eating too much, sleep and exercise. We do.
Yes.
And even people that have a certain health condition, I think they're giving themselves the best chance by also putting in that baseline, right?
Yes.
But we have to be very careful to be like, well, Gia, if you just did these 3 things with your nutrition, you wouldn't have this blood transfusion. I mean, that's just like, no, we need modern medicine. And there are specific conditions where and more vegetables aren't going to do it.
Right. I mean, I have an underlying sort of endometriosis, and it's just been this like never-ending cycle of like, oh, we have to thin out the lining in your uterus, which is going to cause you to bleed. You can't bleed ever, so never bleed, and you need to keep every drop of blood in your body because, like, if I get in a car accident and I'm gonna die on the scene, like, I don't have a lot of blood in my body. Like, I rest at like a 7 or 8.
Right.
And that's a lot of blood for me, you know? So, I just, it is a hormonal thing.
Yeah. And I mean, definitely diet affects hormones. And I think, like I said, you know, it's worth making sure that the nutrition stays high. It's worth making sure that we're not eating too much and that we're staying in our healthy weight ranges. It's worth exercising however you enjoy. CrossFit's great, but if you love
being active,
pick it. I don't care. Do it. It's worth sleeping 7+ hours of sleep a night. Like, get those ducks in a line. Do we know that that's going to move the needle for some conditions? No. And I think we just have to be careful about that. And that's also why I wouldn't want to make specific recommendations even to you for this podcast, because I do think there's a little bit too much out there already that is like, do this and you'll be cured. And it's like, that's totally out of scope and not appropriate.
Are there any iron-rich foods that would be surprising where you're like, oh, that's iron rich, actually, you should probably invest in some of this vegetable or some of this?
Yeah, I mean, of course, you already know the meats and the organ meats and stuff like that, but then plants do have iron as well. And so you can get iron from a variety of sources. Here's the deal, though, like, anemia doesn't come down to just iron.
Right.
And I think that we can take this concept and put it into a lot of other things with nutrition. People will be like, it's just about, pick another nutrient, vitamin C. And it's like, no, it never comes down to one nutrient, because it turns out that we've got like 13 minerals and 15 vitamins. I'm probably getting the numbers mixed up. It turns out that you also need proteins and amino acids. It turns out that you also need fatty acids. So none of your systems are going to work without all of the essential nutrients. And this idea, like, let me just chase iron and I'm now going to have this perfect outcome. It's like,
Because when I'm in the hospital, they're like, iron-rich foods. You got to eat iron-rich foods. And then you also have to take this supplement 3 times a day. And it's 325 milligrams. And then you're never going to take a shit again. And here I am back at this.
Definitely listen to what the doctor's saying. And you have a specific condition that you do need to target iron, et cetera. But in terms of the physiology, like, anemia doesn't come down to just iron, right? And so just pushing you towards, guess what? More whole foods, meats, cutting down on the processed carbs and fat is going to be a great place to be.
The other thing is, like, staying in the hospital, they're like, we're going to help you get better. And then they give you this food where you're like, what is this?
That's true. That I will criticize.
It's not nutrition.
That I will criticize. Yeah, in the hospital. Correct.
They gave me French toast. That was the first thing they gave me. And it was like astronaut food. It didn't taste like bread.
EC's face is so pained right now. It's so painful.
I didn't eat it. And then they were like, why aren't you eating? And I was like, first of all, I intermittent fast.
I was like, I would Uber Eats.
Can't.
If I was in the hospital, I would honestly
I had my mom bring me a poke bowl.
Some of these I can only speak really to some of these orthopedic surgeons, but there are places where you go, and I know there's a really big one in Vail, and you go and it's like they purposely have like the paleo diet afterwards and all this stuff. And it's like a no-brainer in terms of inflammation recovery, regeneration. It's just like, why would you? And that is conventional medicine. Definitely, I'm not saying it's all perfect and roses. One of the ways it can 100% improve is the nutrition on the front lines.
Yeah. I mean, I think in my mind and when I'm there, I'm like, this is a cost thing. Yeah. Like, it's cheap to do this. But in the long run, I'm like, people would be getting better nutrition and it would be better overall. Outcomes, I feel if we had like real food.
Correct.
Instead of, it's all heavily processed.
I know.
I'm like, like they gave me, because I was like, I'm not going to eat that. Can you give me eggs and maybe a protein or something?
Something that was living within the last 3 weeks.
And they gave it to me and I was like, I tasted it and I'm like, this is powdered. I'm sure of it. This isn't real egg.
Correct.
And then I didn't want to eat it.
I mean, there are
then I hid my food in my room.
This horse, but I mean, there are obviously very big logistical challenges of feeding an entire hospital. And I get that. But it is like this really odd dichotomy of like, yeah, we've got millions of people dying from chronic diseases. And then where we actually treat them, we're also feeding them the same
crap.
That contribute to it. Yeah.
Well, I'm like, they give you good food at the cafeteria. You go to where the able-bodied people can get their like salads and stuff. And they're like, well, you don't get that.
I see.
You get these disgusting.
I'd be the guy in the robe with my IV.
Yeah. I thought about putting my clothes on.
Down the hallway.
Yeah, and just like putting it over my IV and going and getting actual food at the cafeteria, but
I want to. We have to wrap up soon because we got to get to our special bonus thing. But I have two questions that I want to end with. So you mentioned briefly this idea of your gut bacteria, gut biomes, etc. This suddenly is a thing that normal people have heard about. Like there are these things living in our bellies that make our lives better and worse.
Correct.
What's the story? And my sense is that what we eat affects them.
Yep.
They are our friends.
Yep. They're commensal, meaning they kind of live with us in a good way. And you have over 1,000 different species, mostly bacteria. That's what we know most about, but there will also be some other microorganisms there. And basically what different types you have, and how much of these different types seems to be associated with different health conditions. So you could take a population that, let's say, has cardiovascular disease. They tend to have more of these bacteria present, and they tend to have more of them present compared to an otherwise healty population.
Can I interrupt with
Please.
that? Because I think one of the big problems is this idea of correlation and causation. And so I'm going to take us on a slight tangent. And maybe you have an opinion about this, but there's all this stuff about sun and vitamin D. And so when people don't get enough sun, the advice is take vitamin D to make up for that. There's starting to be, at least I've read one article in Outside Magazine, I'll put it in there, is that it's the sun that's good for you. And then vitamin D is a marker, not exactly the mediating process.
Right.
And so the question, of course, with the gut biomes and so on is, are they a marker, right? Like when you have a problem, they look this way. And the question is, do you have the problem because of them, or do they also react negatively? Does that,
yeah.
I'm way outside my expertise here, clearly, because I'm saying things like way and they. And
So like, definitely diet can affect your microbiome, but there's going to be other things that affect that as well. Genetics, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So like, that's where we can't take this approach that like nutrition will cure everything.
Yes.
And taking the snapshot of your microbiome, where I actually want to go with this point, I don't want to say is, I think the focus is lost. I think there's some really awesome research, and that I want that to continue. And they're doing some things that I don't even know what they're doing, and it's amazing. Like that's awesome. But like, if your microbiome is not an ideal ratio, what's the answer? Right. Absent of a disease? The answer is eat fruits and vegetables with varied polyphenols, the brightly colored compounds that will help shift the microbiota in a more favorable way. Eat food with fiber, i.e. fruits and vegetables, because that's what feeds the microbiota.
I see.
And so to me, like, while the research I think will take us into some really powerful places downrange, I think for kind of like the otherwise healthy population that's like, what's in my gut? And do I need to take this test and find out? It's like, well, how's your diet? And if your diet's the standard American diet, let's first focus on that. Let's do that before we worry about like testing and seeing what species we have.
Thank you for that. I get that sense too, like, eat well and these things start to fall into play, and if they don't, get more help.
One of the phrases I like, sorry, but people will be like, what about, microbiome testing? And the response I like is, what did you have for breakfast? Because it always comes back to like, well, show me what you ate for the last 3 days. Take pictures of everything you ate, and I can get a very clear sense of where and how to improve before we go down into all this fancy testing and explaining vitamin D metabolism or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like, tell me your lifestyle, tell me what you're eating, and let's worry about what actually matters.
That's neat.
As far as supplements go, though, is it effective?
Vitamin
People
D.
get very involved in like buying supplements.
Probiotics and things
I'm going to
probiotics?
take vitamin D. I'm going to take B12. I'm going to take vitamin C. I'm taking all this stuff. Are you synthesizing it the same, though?
Right.
Like, are you absorbing it
These are great
as
questions.
well as you would if you were eating 800
grams
of actual...
Which won't hit all of your nutrient needs anyway. But because I don't want to make it sound like a panacea.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, there are some questions about like, do supplements work the same as they would in a natural form? I think generally my recommendation on supplements is I don't recommend them.
Right.
I do think there are cases where people need them, and I do think they should be working with a qualified practitioner to do that. I don't think they should be reading blogs about what their dose should be. We can even go down the vitamin D rabbit hole, but still, regardless, I just think, again, it's like, well, what about, I don't know, vitamin C supplements? Like, well, what did you eat for breakfast?
Right.
Let's come back to the basics. Let's move the needle where we can, get all those ducks in a row. And then if it's a real condition, you should be working with somebody.
Right.
You see, this is great. Like, I could tell you get asked the same question like 100 times, and you're very good about acting like you've been asked this question like
sometimes. Some of these are new. Some of these are new. So
okay. So I want to finish with a little bit of a different question.
Okay.
And it seems to me that you're living a remarkable life, and I want to know what's your secret.
What's my secret to a remarkable life?
Do you agree you're living a remarkable life? And what's your secret?
You're hitting me at a transition point. So sometimes I think transitions are hard. But what's kind of kept me going during this transition is like, I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. And
you're becoming more entrepreneurial.
Yep. And there's some fears around that, and it's not an easy thing to do. And, it's not like steady and secure, which has probably described my life for all the years up until now. So yeah, I think it's remarkable in the sense of, doing some things that I wanted to do for a long time, going after them. And so how do you do it? I don't know. I guess it's just that whole, you hear it all the time. It's so, I guess, cliche at this point, but listen to your gut, listen to your intuition.
Take a risk.
Take a risk.
Well, yeah. So you're pursuing. Obviously, you have this company, and you're doing speaking, and you're
a lot of education stuff. Yeah. And that's, I think, what's a little bit difficult is I haven't quite figured out the business model per se. I've got my hands on a lot of different ways, and I'm just sort of figuring out how this is going to continue to grow. And so there's stress associated with that, but there's also like, well, this is cool. This is what I wanted to do. Right. So yeah, I mean, I think it's remarkable in the sense of, made a change in my life to then pursue what I wanted to do.
Good. Well, I think, you can say, am I living a remarkable life? You could say, how many podcasts am I being invited on?
Right. That's right. That was my new metric.
So we're out of time.
Okay.
We're going to fire this up in a moment, but I wanted to say thank you to Gia.
Yes.
You didn't know this, but this was a big test for you.
Oh, was it?
Yes. And you have
Did I pass?
Yes, by far.
I wouldn't have studied if you told me.
You got a B+.
Oh. Okay.
You're going to get one of those reviews now.
Yes, exactly. EC, thank you so much for your time. This was exactly what I hoped it would be.
Awesome.
And I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheers to both of you. Okay, that was fun. Now on to the bonus material where Gia and I quiz EC on what types of food are okay to eat and not okay to eat. Let's get started. So we're back here with Gia and EC for a little bonus. And I actually want to recap just briefly some of the stuff you said because I want to make sure I have it right for me and for the listeners. So there's sort of this kind of three... I've always talked about it as the tripod. So this is kind of my little rule for life is that, to live a remarkable life, to do the things that I want to do, I need three things there. So one is I need good sleep. The second is I need good exercise. And the third is I need good nutrition. I need to eat.
Yeah, that's great.
Right. And so I like the tripod idea because if you remove one, you fall over, so to speak, and, as a seat kind of thing. And then, but deeper into that idea of nutrition, I really like this idea of quantity, just enough, not too much, enough to fuel your exercise and your lifestyle, but not so much that your body's turning it into fat and you're having to carry it around. And then the idea that the food that you're eating should have high nutritional value. And that comes from diversity of meat, vegetables, nuts, seeds, fruit.
Totally.
Right. So that said, there's some wiggle room.
Of course.
You have your advice. What I like about your advice is you do not. This does not have to be punishment.
Correct.
Right. You can enjoy your eating and your life as long as you take care of business foundationally.
Totally.
So when I was prepping for this, I was like, I have some questions about some things.
Okay.
And whether we should be eating them, whether we should be not, whether and so on. And so, yes or no, EC.
Is there a maybe category?
We'll see. You can push back. Yogurt.
Sure.
Yogurt's good.
What kind, though?
Yeah, I mean...
I know. Of course, I knew this was going to happen.
This is going to quickly deteriorate into, tell me what it is. A lot of yogurts, in fact...
I'm doing Greek yogurt, 5% fat.
Okay. And what's the flavor?
No flavor.
Plain.
Yeah.
You're going to have to make sure that we have some other things in the diet, but sure.
Okay. So that's a good snack for me with a little bit of fruit?
Sure. Just interestingly, we just did a challenge at CrossFit Roots that was a Vice challenge. I
saw this. Hold on. I want to say that it was this because it was above the urinal, so I got to read it.
Okay.
And this is Boulder's Vice challenge. So it was alcohol, which obviously I think is a good one because alcohol is basically sugar. Sugar. Caffeine.
And you could pick two of the three.
Oh, okay.
And then the third one you still could have, but you had to limit it to some degree. So you couldn't replace one vice with another.
Yeah, so the vices are,
Yeah. And the reason why, and I don't think that people
caffeine?
have to stay. I actually don't think caffeine is bad per se, but I do think there is some interesting habits around it, specifically people doing the 3 p.m. sugar latte mocha type of thing. When it's in that type of thing, or when you're totally having too much to then skip sleeping, that's when we have to worry about caffeine. But couple cups in the morning, don't worry about it, you know? But where I wanted to go with that is a bunch of people, of course, eliminated sugar and just it's really an educational experience. I don't want to vilify sugar, but when you start looking at what sugar is in, that people will be like, oh my gosh, I had no idea how much is in yogurt, sour cream, protein powder. It's in everything. And so anyway, that's why, of course, with the yogurt, it's like a lot of the yogurts out there are actually very high caloric, like density is very high.
And is it usually the case, the lower the fat content, the more the sugar is in there?
Often. Yeah. Okay. And then it just depends on the brand too. Like the plains and the stuff is great, but a lot of people don't like that because the taste.
You get used to it. I think like you would.
You get used to eating something gross.
I think yes, actually so there's research on this stuff, which is first of all, there's a lot of kind of noxious isn't the right word, but there's a lot of foods, coffee, wine, beer, olives.
Right.
There's a lot of things out there that people love, first, right? But the first time they have them, they don't like it. But the more you have
pussies. Yeah, I know those people, Peter. Coffee, caffeine. Is it affecting our gut bacteria? Is it killing off certain things that we might need in there?
I would not.
Thank you for that segue away from that joke.
No problem.
Yeah,
I'm here to help.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay,
I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay.
Cool.
Do you have another one? Oh, so I had coffee on the list, and my suspicion lines up with yours, which is it's not the coffee early in the day is good. It has a mood boost. It can help you cognitively, performance wise if you're exercising and so on. But it's often the other things that go along with getting the coffee in you.
Yeah, and caffeine, like there are some cases where it's not great because we have, of course, genetic variation in how well we metabolize it. So the people who, for example, can have a cup of coffee at 9 p.m. and then fall asleep, they're called fast metabolizers. And then there's everything under the sun below that. That's people. Me. Oh, you're one of those?
Yeah, I can drink coffee and go to bed.
Oh, wow. Yeah, like I can't have it after 1 p.m., right? So I'm on the slower end of the spectrum. And then combined with genetics and other medications, this all changes the caffeine scene. But so there are some cases, people that are really slow metabolizers who have a lot, we have some problems. Generally, people in that couple cups, 4 shots a day type of range, you're probably okay, assuming that, sleep and other things okay.
All right, good.
Pickles.
Great.
A whole jar.
All of them.
All right.
Is that true?
I love it.
I'm not too concerned.
So before this, we were watching this ASMR thing.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
It's on YouTube.
That's
and
right.
One of the videos, so people, I'm not suggesting people do this, but this is like basically they take a mic, they turn it all the way up, and then they have people make sounds.
And they whisper into it.
Huh.
And there was one with a woman eating pickles.
Huh.
And Gia loves her pickles.
I mean, I don't love to listen to other people eat their pickles,
Right.
But I love to eat pickles. I love a good sort of briny, salty kimchi.
They are delicious.
Like all stuff like that. I just love.
Is it the
umami phrase? That flavor.
Umami?
Yeah,
I think so.
Okay, I got a couple more.
Great.
Dark chocolate.
Great.
I do like 85%.
Great.
Usually after my last meal of the day.
Great. Even milk chocolate, fine. Here's the deal though. Did you eat too much in total the rest of the day? And did you get enough nutrients, especially vitamins and minerals in the rest of the day besides your chocolate?
Yeah, the answer is yes, of course.
So.
Okay, that's good.
Semen, is it poisoning us? It's poison. We know it's poison.
You don't have to answer that one.
That's another expert.
I'm here to speak on it. I'm an expert and it's poison. It's
chewing gum.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
And so there's two forms.
Where do you want to go with it?
There's two forms of chewing gum. Like, so there's obviously like traditional chewing gum, Hubba Bubba, like the kind of stuff you had when you were a teenager. And then like there's all these new chewing gums
sugar
that don't have,
and
I have the chewing gum I use, and I use it as like a palate cleanser. Like I'll have at breakfast or you have coffee and then I chew on some gum a little bit. It kind of, it just feels, you don't have time to brush.
Yeah.
It's actually, I think, called Pure.
Okay.
Which,
I've seen that brand. Yeah.
And it's supposed to have it doesn't have aspartame
in it,
or whatever. I'm just curious about chewing gum in general.
In general, it's fine. I think.
I love how she says fine, but it's like she doesn't want to say it.
No, it's not that, because we always have to think of like how is it applied. Like if you say something's fine, what you end up finding is that we have some people that are like doing 24 packs of chewing gum a day just continuously. And then we have other people using it as a palate cleanser occasionally after a meal.
Yes.
And so that's where saying fine is hard, because people are like, that means it's okay forever in all circumstances.
Right.
And that's kind of hard with this yes and no stuff. And so chewing gum, I don't think even the ones with the sweeteners are all killing us. And I don't think we're all dying from that. I do think there's some interesting habits around it. You could be consuming quite a lot. And I also personally find that I end up being more hungry after I'm chewing it. It's kind of like starting.
I see.
But that's just my own, that's not like science. That's just like
chewing
me
gum.
personally.
If you swallow it, does it stay in your stomach for 7 years?
No.
Are you swallowing it?
No.
You don't swallow. Interesting.
So in general applications of chewing gum, if we're assuming after a meal palate cleanser and you enjoy it, great.
Good. I'm just killing it right
You
now
are.
with these things.
When I was 5, I swallowed a penny. Okay.
Wow. Takes 7 years for that one to pass.
I don't know. I think
Okay.
my mom went through and was like, "Ugh, let's see if it came out, I guess.
Protein shake after a workout.
Sure.
Okay.
Same thing. Like I actually made this comparison kind of recently. I like comparing protein powder to rice.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like rice gives us carbohydrates and not a lot of micronutrients. Protein powder gives us protein and not a lot of micronutrients.
I see.
Can that be worked in? Of course. Is that a great way to hit protein? Sure. Should all of your days look like shakes and bars? No.
Got it. Good.
Yeah.
Ketones.
No.
Yeah, I knew that.
MCT oil.
No. It's, what are you using it for?
I don't know. The reason
To make my coffee gross.
Here's the reason I asked
Tell
about
me
it.
all the things that you're using
My
it for.
coffee needs oil.
No. Here's the reason I asked about it is so I do have a protein shake after a hard workout.
Okay.
And I just needed, I'm moving, so I just
Sure.
needed enough protein powder to get me through till
Yep.
I leave. And I went into a Whole Foods. There's obviously dozens of
Lots.
options. It's
A lot.
right. It's tough to know. And then they had placed MCT oil
Sure have.
within that thing. And so to me, I asked, "Oh, am I missing? I don't even know what MCT oil is.
Uh-huh.
What is MCT oil?"
Medium chain triglycerides, basically a fat that supposedly burns quicker.
Okay, so you're just adding a bit of fat to your protein shake. If you
Correct.
have
And
that.
that's the way to interpret it. People think that it's giving them this instantaneous energy boost and it doesn't actually get added as fat on the body, and it's a lot of hype.
Got it.
If you like it can, you just consider it like I'm adding calories to my protein shake.
Got it.
Gross.
It does make your protein shake taste better.
Great.
Though, doesn't
Does it?
Well, it's fat. You're adding some oil.
If you
to
think it tastes okay. I mean, sometimes when it's just like a straight MCT oil, it's not delicious.
I see, but it might have another flavor and less sugar in it.
Well, your protein powder probably has a flavor which helps make it delicious.
Well, I'm
Got
just
it.
like, if you're making a shake and it's cold and you put oil in it,
Right.
it just seems like you might get a gluey, oily bottom.
Yeah, look, I'm glad we got a no instead of a fine. So that's
I don't
that's
think
a
it's
win.
killing people. I think the hype is
draining your
way
wallet.
too much. And like, do you need it? Is it giving you anything better than either just skipping it and having fat elsewhere? No.
having
But
some-
if you like it as like a taste, I mean, sure.
Got it.
It's just a way for people to make
Fine.
money off you.
That is sort of like fine.
That's a no. I mean, it's a no. I'm gonna say that's a
no. I'm fine with you saying
I wrote
no.
a big X
Yeah.
across
And
MCT
let's
oil.
can we kill the MCT hype?
Okay,
Yeah.
but it's just these people.
We did it. It's done. It's dead.
done. But
final
only for the
answer.
people who did the
Who
bonus.
listened?
That's
You have
right.
to listen to
That's
the
right.
podcast.
So this is another one, and I'm asking nachos. Okay, so here, let me tell you why.
Okay.
EC's making a face. Both of you are making faces.
Yeah, because I'm like, what do you mean? Of course it's fine.
I
corn.
occasionally, I get a little rundown. I'm a little I'm just down.
Sure.
I'm low energy, and I just lean into some comfort food.
And you
Okay.
need a
My
little
last meal
fiesta
of the
to bring
day.
you up.
Okay.
And I'm not much of a cook, but boy, nachos are tasty. And so I don't go crazy. I do chips, cheese, some onion, salsa, sometimes black beans, sometimes meat on those things. And it is delicious. But I have to tell you, I've noticed in the kind of cleaner I eat, the more my stomach
Hates
after
it?
the tortilla. I think it's the tortilla chips,
Okay.
especially.
Could be the vegetable oils on them. Yeah.
Okay, I just kind of go ugh. I just sort of have this thing. So,
Maybe you're eating the wrong tortilla chip. Just saying.
I appreciate you.
I'm going to give you one guess how I'm going to answer.
It's fine.
Fine.
As long as I don't do it too much, too often.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the other things I like to tell people is I can't validate your diet. And in fact, nobody can. And if they're telling you that they can validate your diet, they're...
Oh, that's a good test.
Like, yeah, they're full of it. Only because, like, there's so many factors. I don't know what the rest of your day look like. I don't know what your genetics are. I can't know exactly what nutrients you had and how that's going to play out years from now. What I do know is looking at your body composition, performance, and health are the best that we can do. And eating whole foods is better than not, and not eating too much. And then you have to kind of pick how fast you want to drive, if you want to use the driving analogy. Like, do you want to speed? Then you can have more nachos and less quality food. Do you know what I mean?
I see. That's fair. Yeah, that's good. I really largely decided like this is a rare instance for me because what I'm using is actually my physiological reaction after eating it. Yeah. While I was like, boy, it's fun to eat. And then afterwards I just feel a little... Not so great. I feel kind of poopy.
I don't want to also sound like a perfectionist. My diet is not perfect by any means at all. I enjoy things as well. So it's not like you can never have nachos, but we always just have to remember what's the whole context, what's the frequency, what are our health markers that we can check in on, and then make those decisions.
I think that's good. Do you have any more, Gia, you want to ask? I know you had pickles was on your list.
I did, because I love pickles and kimchi and all the really fermented, like, salty. I love them. I'll also really lay into some oysters, which is decadent, but I will have a lot.
Aren't they I'll order aphrodisiac?
I mean, and that was my next question. What are our fuck foods? Like, what do I eat? Can you make me sexier with the foods? What can we eat to be like, oh yeah, that got her. That got her.
That's another expert.
Yeah.
I'm working on that one for a later one.
Okay. All right.
I'm the physiology person.
EC, Gia, thanks so much. I appreciate it. And this was really a lot of fun.
Yeah,
thank you for letting me say fuck foods. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Solo, the single person's guide to a remarkable life. For more about our guests and show notes, go to petermcgraw.org. Please subscribe and share with your single friends.